start on time. There's going to be a few people coming in. My name is Wilharm. I'm the athletic director for Jefferson High School, and I'm happy to, in a sense, kick off the 2012-13, at least the issues associated with athletics. It's still a little bit before the athletics actually start in the school year, but this gets us thinking really seriously about the upcoming school year. So always an exciting time. Thank you for coming tonight. I know the weather is tough today, but I'm so thankful for the temperature in this new gym. It is great here. We're in here because the auditorium is full of furniture yet. We're still finishing up some construction, but very fortunate to have this facility to meet tonight. I will be taking about 45 minutes of your time tonight. By coming to this meeting and getting all these forms, you are taking care of your responsibility in preparation for the upcoming athletic season. And I'll explain all that as we go through this. If someone is not here tonight and you see them down the road, there's not a second meeting this year. We chose, instead of having a second face-to-face meeting, we'll be showing a video of this meeting during registration. Registration for the high school is August 1st. And that video will be shown on the hour starting at 10:30 for those people. If you're here tonight, you don't have to worry about that. So good job. If they can't make that, then we'll check out videos from the high school office as we have in the past. But I'm saying this now and I'll say it again later. Our high school office is still in a trailer out on Taft Avenue, and they will be moving during August. For people to expect immediate service in August is going to be an unrealistic expectation. So if you wait till the last minute to do something, you may be disappointed in the timing because we may not have access to some things during the move from a trailer into the high school office, set everything up. So please understand that, and the more you can take care of this week, you're set. You're good to go. And I'm talking if you're in a fall sport. Okay, go ahead, Tim. The Code of Conduct meeting is our attempt and our responsibility to provide you the information relative to athletics participating in Jefferson High School. Most of what we do is because we're a member of the WIAA. WIAA stands for Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association. Almost all high schools in the state of Wisconsin choose to belong to that association. We are bound by the rules and regulations pertaining to student eligibility, and we abide by those rules. So doing what we're doing tonight is part of our membership in the WIAA. Further from that, our school board has set policy that applies to our student athletes, and we may do things in addition to what the WIAA requires us to do. Our athletic teams are members mainly of the Rock Valley Conference, of which there are two divisions, north, south is the Rock Valley. Our swim teams and our gymnastics team compete in the Southern Lakes Conference, which some of you in here competed in when you went to school here, back when you went to school here. Okay, go ahead. All right, preseason eligibility. It is not okay just to show up to practice the first night and say, here I am. That's not the way it has to work. In this day and age, there's just way too much liability on the school's part, and really, as parents, you would want us to do that. So you have some things to take care of before you report to practice, and that starts with the fall. Obviously, we have more time before the winter and the spring, but again, by coming to this meeting, you've taken care of one of your responsibilities for the winter and the spring as well. Okay? But the things we have to do, we have to have an up-to-date physical card. The forms for this are out in the lobby. If you haven't picked up what you need, you can pick it up on the way out. But let me go through a quick visual. This green form would be the form that you would turn into the office if you are choosing for your son or daughter to have a physical right now, or they've had one recently. Okay? The green form for a physical is not necessary every year. At the minimum, a physical must be taken every other year. And that's what it means by up to date. Okay? So it's not one physical for 4 years. That won't do It's not required to have one physical for each of 4 years either. In the alternate year, you can just fill out this card. But this counts as an up-to-date physical card. This does not require a doctor's visit. This requires a parent's signature, but this then would be the up-to-date card. What you're saying with this is, this one from last year, I'm good with as a parent. I am acknowledging that we're not taking a physical this year, and that's what this card tells us. And you are allowed to do that. Okay? Some schools require a physical as a freshman and a junior. We don't do that. To me, that's a family choice. You decide, based on your family needs, when you have to take a physical. If you want to do one every year, go ahead. If you did one in the 8th grade, and you want to do this in 9th grade, this in 10th grade, this in 11th grade, this in 12th grade, that's fine. You get the idea? Back and forth. But you can't just say, I had a physical last year. You have to have this card. Okay? That's the up-to-date physical card in the alternate year. Mrs. Ganser understands you had a physical last year. She'll have this form, but she needs this one to say that your parents have said, we're not going to have a physical this year, this counts. Now, if you ever have a question about the date of the physical, Mrs. Ganser can answer that. There are specific cutoff dates. We're not going to worry about that tonight. You are very safe to do physicals in the summer. That is just the safest time. You're going to be covered for a whole school year. You're going to be covered the next school year. If you choose to have one in April, you may have an issue. Right? Okay, but well, those details you can always ask. Okay? So that's the first thing. Questions on the physical, because that's usually the number one thing that keeps people from practicing. And here's the bottom line. For our fall practices, which are starting August 7th, if you don't have a physical, you do not practice. Very simply said. And we hold to that very strongly because we care about the health and safety of our athletes. Your good intentions aren't going to matter. Having one scheduled for August 14th, you're going to have to wait. There is no discussion on that. That's just the bottom line. You have to have that in so that we could say we've got the information that says you're physically ready for practice. Insurance pledge card, that is on the form. That looks like this. Let me pull it up. In the fall, you'd be on the blue form. And if you're a fall athlete, you would want the one that says fall. Girls swimming, boys soccer, football, cross country, girls tennis, volleyball. Okay, you want the fall. There are winter and spring, different colors that have to be filled out before those seasons as well, because there might be a payment that has to be made. We're going to just double check that you have everything turned in. But initially, most urgent will be the fall, and on the back of that sheet is the insurance and pledge information. Code meeting attendance card, you get that tonight as you exit. Okay? You can turn everything in tomorrow. You don't have to turn things in tonight. You can turn it in Wednesday, you can turn it in Thursday. But again, just remember, the longer you wait, we're going to move everything out of that trailer. We're going to organize the office. And if you choose to wait till the first day of your practice, volleyball, cross country, you might have a problem. Because August 13th, they're going to be in the middle of a move. So that's when you start practice, I know that. But turn it in before that. Do it this week. Do it even early next week. Done. You don't have to worry about it. The WIA card and concussion acknowledgement. I've got a bunch of paperwork for concussion. I'll get to that later. The WIA card is referring to this staple sheet. And on the back of that staple sheet, I'll confuse you here, but it's not going to be that big a deal. It says you have to sign that at the bottom. We have that on the blue form. On this fall one. So you don't really have to sign that, but if you're not sure, sign everything, turn it in, we'll take care of it. It's no big deal. Okay? But in case you're very observant, you will see that it's there twice. It's once on the blue form, and it's at the bottom of this staple form that says High School Athletic Eligibility Information Bulletin. This form came about because the WIA got sick of the phone calls that said, well, my school never told me that. My athletic director never said that we had a code of conduct. Because in this day and age, people can contact the WIA very easily. Okay, so a couple of years ago, they finally said, we're tired of these phone calls. You, athletic directors, have everyone sign this. That way, you can prove to us that they got the information, which is what we're doing tonight. Okay? And the user fee of $50 per sport, which is a $100 maximum. 3 sport athletes only pay $100. $100 is the maximum that you pay as an individual. We do not have a family fee amount. So it's $50 per sport, $100 maximum. So someone that goes out for that 3rd sport does not have to pay. But that would all be as part of the records that we would have kept. So those are the things that got to be completed prior to starting practice. It is not okay to just show up to practice and say, I'm here. You must take care of those things. The last thing coaches want to do and the last thing I want to do is stop kids from practicing. Because we know you're excited and ready and willing. But we have responsibilities. Now I'm putting that responsibility on you to take care of that stuff. Okay? All right, moving to just some issues associated with athletic things that I know people ask about. One of them is always attendance. Attendance at school. And the reason this is an issue, and I can say this because I've been here a number of years now, and I can remember a time when you only had to be here half a day, and you could practice or play that night. That is no longer the rule. The rule is even more simple than that. In order to practice or play on any given school day, you have to be here the whole day. Are there exceptions? Yeah. A scheduled doctor's appointment, other things that are scheduled ahead of time, but being tired, that's not okay. Not feeling well, understandable. Parents should have you stay home. But then you shouldn't practice either. We don't want you getting the rest of them sick. We have had times where people have taken it too far. We've had teams passing around. So if you're sick, it might be better to stay away. But you can't miss a portion of the school day, beginning or end, and expect to practice or play that night. That is the simple rule, different than years ago. And that's where I find the most confusion there, because someone will remember when they went to school here, it was different. This does not apply to a Saturday event. If you happen to miss part of a Friday, you'd be okay for a Saturday event. Okay. Academic eligibility. The WIA requires us to have a policy that meets a minimum that the WIA sets. Our school board has chosen to go above that minimum. So, ineligibility results when someone has failed 2 classes. Now this is in grades 10, 11, and 12. Okay? Failing 2 classes for a grading period makes a student ineligible for the next 9 weeks. And in parentheses it says semester versus quarter. A semester grade always takes precedence over a quarter grade. If there is no semester grade, then the quarter grade. So we'll be starting school here early September. The grades that will determine eligibility for fall sports are in the books. They are semester 2 grades from grade 9, 10, and 11. At the end of last year, semester 2 grades. I'll be checking those in the next couple weeks and determining eligibility based on those grades because some have changed over the summer. But that eligibility is pretty much determined. When the school year starts, you're starting quarter 1. Quarter 1 ends sometime in November. I don't remember the date. That grade at the end of quarter 1 will determine eligibility from that point forward for the next 9 weeks. Then in January, we'll get to the end of semester 1, and semester 1 grades will determine eligibility from that point forward. Okay? Failing one class and or earning below a 1.6 grade point average, a student is ineligible for a minimum of 10 calendar days and a minimum of 2 contests. And the 2 contest rule, our coaches wanted that. There were times where the penalty for certain sports wasn't severe enough in our coaches' opinion. They want the grades to come first too. So that was changed a couple of years ago to make that more consistent and to have that have a little more bite to it. Now that's grades 10, 11, and 12. Grade 9, that's incoming freshmen this year. All freshmen start their freshman year academically eligible. Grade 8 grades are not evaluated for eligibility. At the end of quarter 1, freshmen are then subject to the same thing with a little modification. Again, this came from our coaches and from our freshman academy. They want a little more flexibility. So 3 or more failing grades will make a freshman ineligible for the next 9 weeks. Participation over the course of your high school career has an impact. And as a freshman, coaches and the freshman academy teachers wanted to open the door a little more. Having 1 or 2 failing grades and less than a 1.5 GPA makes them ineligible for 15 calendar days. So the numbers are different for freshmen. You just saw the 10, 11, 12. The freshman numbers are different because we want freshmen to feel encouraged and supported and maybe learn from a mistake and be able to continue on. Because our history has shown that if we lose them as freshmen, it's hard to get them back into involvement with athletics. If you're a freshman on a JV or varsity team, you will follow the same rules as your teammates. So if you're fortunate enough to be moved up to a JV or varsity team, you don't get the freshman rules, you get the same rules as your teammates. Okay? And that would be taken care of at that point of whatever season you might be in. All right, code of conduct. I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning. Everything I'm talking about is in your hands. Everything that I do, as best as we can, is predetermined. Have we thought of everything? No. Did we try? We tried. But I don't think it's possible to think of every little thing that could come up. But you've got it in your hands. And it's been predetermined as to the consequences. It's predetermined as to what we expect. And so it's all in your hands. And I'm not reading this to you page by page, obviously, but you have this as part of what you pick up on the lobby. Code of conduct refers to the things besides grades that make you eligible or ineligible. And that would be the way that you choose to behave as a student athlete and that's attending Jefferson High School. These standards we've set. What the WA tells every school, you have to do this. What you do and how you enforce it is different. If you go to every other school, you'll find a little difference. No one does this exactly the same. I researched it. Nobody does this part exactly the same. They're very similar, but there's all sorts of little variations, little things that schools do with regard to this. Okay? It's a 12-month enforcement, which means summer counts and off-season counts when it comes to the issues that will be coming up on the next slide. It is based on the premise that participating in athletics requires a certain level of performance. In order to achieve that level of performance, the things we're asking you not to do are the things that inhibit that performance. So they're performance-based things that we're asking you not to do. We're also talking about representation. As a student athlete from this school, we ask more of you. Okay? It's a privilege to be an athlete. It's a privilege to represent your school, yourself, your community, your family. But along with that privilege comes responsibility. And so we're asking you to accept that responsibility. But if you don't want to, you don't have to go for the sport. No one forced you to do that either. So the idea that we're forcing this upon you, not really, because you're not forced to be on the sport to begin with. So it's very much a two-way street. We want you to be on the team, but we want you to accept the responsibility that goes with being on that team. And the last piece of that, our district, as you all know, has a very strong emphasis on character education, and these things all fit into that model as well in terms of what we're representing through our athletic program. So these are defined by classes. Class 1 are serious criminal acts punishable at a high level, at least 12 months. That's done on a very much case-by-case basis. If something big happens, we deal with it. Class 2, illegal actions that are deemed unbecoming an athlete. That has some flexibility to it, but that definitely has a category for things that are not representing yourself or your school in a positive manner. Selling, distributing, possessing, or consuming. So there's 4 things there, and then those things that are listed underneath it. Okay. Class 2 consequences, so for that group that I just briefly talked about there, and again, this is all in this book. I don't need to go through all the details tonight. I can just point out the highlights and ask you to spend time looking at this if you have any questions. The consequences are predetermined by which violation you had during your high school career. And again, in season only, no, 12 months. Okay, so the violations accumulate over the course of a 4-year high school career. In order for a violation to be served, a season must be completed. And I had to put that in there because a lot of what we have in here is based on past experience. Someone could say they were out for a sport, sit out a certain number of games, and then just quit. There really no penalty. So if you say you're out for cross country and you're serving a penalty in cross country, when that penalty is over, say it's the 25%, you have to finish the rest of the cross country season and run in order for that to be counted as a violation served. Okay. Other things covered in the Code of Conduct, guilt by association, those are done on a case-by-case basis, times where you may be somewhere, but it can prove that you didn't consume, possess, I'm forgetting the other words that were listed there, but you were still there for a period of time, and that would be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. School suspensions, in-school suspensions, ineligible for practice competition on the day of an in-school suspension. Our administration in the high school determines who gets an in-school suspension, then this applies to that. I don't decide who gets an in-school suspension here. I do at the middle school, but not here. Out-of-school suspension, you're going to miss one contest for each day of an out-of-school suspension. Even if your sport is 3 months away, that will carry over. All right, up to a big point of emphasis for the WIAA. You got a lot of paperwork associated with concussions. And it is a point of emphasis for all WIAA member schools this year, and it will be for every year from now on. There's just so much research, so much information that's been accumulated, evaluated, that it is here to stay. And it is a good thing that we care about your kids, and we're able to approach this in really a different way than was done. I'll just pick a number, 20 years ago. Were we doing some of the things now, 20 years ago? Absolutely not. I was coaching then, I can say that for certain. But that's a good thing. We care about the health and safety of our student athletes. So the printed information you've been provided, there are 2 forms that look something like this. One is for parents, one is for athletes. There's a page that looks like this, that's front and back. That's just information. There is a form that looks like this that has to be signed and turned in. So that's quite a bit associated with concussion. Okay, that's the written acknowledgement that you will sign. At this point, I'm going to just play a 5-minute video. It's put from the WIAA. The WIAA website is available to all of you. www.wiaawi.org. Okay? This video is just information. Okay? and it is a big push to raise the awareness of both student athletes and parents with regard to concussion-related symptoms and how you are affected by that with regards to practice and playing. When the video is done, I'll be introducing our athletic trainer to you. He'll talk to you for a moment about this, and then we're getting close to being done. I'm doing good. Okay. Ready? What the hell is concussion?
Hi, I'm Mike Jefferson. I'm a doctor and I've got 3 kids, Wilharm and Angus, and they're like a lot of kids. They like to play sports, they're a bit active prone. So why am I telling you this? Well, I wanted to talk to you about a thing that tends to happen to kids that do play sports or even just have the occasional accident. You've probably heard about it before because of a guy named Sidney Crosby or other famous people, and you see them on TV and they look fine. I mean, they aren't wearing casts or going for surgery, but they're telling you they're not fine. So today I wanted to talk to you about, you guessed it, concussions. Concussions 101. So let's start with the basics. What is a concussion? So a concussion is a knock on the head where you have some other stuff going on. So it could be headache, confusion, blurry vision, feeling sick to your stomach, or even just generally feeling weird. These are all signs that the brain's been disturbed a bit. You might be knocked out, and you don't have to lose consciousness to actually have a concussion. But these are all things that can happen that shows that the brain's been disturbed. So what's different about a concussion? Well, I think 3 things. So firstly, the brain sits inside the skull. So when you smash it, it's actually most oftentimes protected. But sometimes if you hit it hard enough, the brain hits the inside of the skull and it can actually get bruised. And if you hit it hard enough, it can actually swing back or rotate and get bruised on the other side of your brain. Secondly, when you twist your ankle or bang your knee, you might see some bruising or scrapes or swelling on the outside, but this isn't the case with your brain. It gets injured and nobody really knows. Thirdly, your brain is like mission control. It controls things like your balance, your mood, your sleep, your thinking, your senses. So when it gets injured, there can be lots of things that can happen. So we discussed some of the classic ones before, like headaches or neck pain or balance problems or blurry vision. But you also might have some symptoms that you may not have felt before, like being in a fog, finding it hard to concentrate, feeling sad, or having lots of anxiety, or worrying more than usual. You may even have trouble sleeping, or maybe even just you're more sensitive to light or noise, or just other. Also, your brain holds on to lots of different files or memories. And sometimes when your brain gets rocked a bit, it's like a file cabinet that gets knocked over. And the files get spilt onto the floor, and the thoughts get scrambled, and sometimes the memory files just get lost, so you might not even remember the accident or even that afternoon. So, now to know more about what a concussion is, I wanted to get you to think about 3 other things. So, number 1 is we don't want to make things worse. We know because the brain is hidden. We can see if there's a fracture in your skull or a bleed, but we can't see concussion even with some of the cool machines we have now, like CT scans or MRIs. And we know if you injure your brain before it is healed, things get much worse. So we follow protocol, a kind of official procedure, and we call it return to activity. So what we want you to do is just start. If you have no symptoms or none of the things that I talked about at rest, then you can kind of go on to the next stage. And you can go for some light exercise like a jog, and there's no problem there. You can go on to, if it was hockey, you could go skating. And then we allow you to be yellow shirted if there's no symptoms. So what I mean by that is that you can participate in a practice, but nobody can come into contact with you. And then if that works out, then you can go to a full contact practice. And if that works out, then you can return to play. So Sidney Crosby's gone through all these stages, and now we're just hoping that he can hit the final stage, which is return to play. But if you have any symptoms or any problems with any of these levels, you have to drop down to the level before, and that's where you can get stuck sometimes. So number two I wanted to talk to you about was it's very hard to know how you will do. So when you have a concussion, it's important to know that with all the kind of negative news we've been hearing about concussions, that actually 90% are back in 4 to 6 weeks. The tricky part though is it's hard to tell at the beginning. Sometimes people have kind of a light injury and they have lots of problems, and sometimes the reverse is true. So like any other injury, it can be a bit frustrating. So you do have to prepare for the worst. Third point, and my final point, is about communication, about talking with your parents, teachers, coaches, trainers, and friends, because it's hard to see concussions. People presume you're okay. So you need to be upfront about how you're feeling. Things like being in a fog or being anxious can be hard to put a finger on. So you don't need to dwell on it, but you do need to be clear and honest about how you're feeling. So take care of yourself if you have a concussion. Your brain is you. Everything you have got good at, from riding a bicycle to playing soccer, stored in there. All your memories, like family trips or winning something, are stored there. All your skills about figuring things out for school or even in life are built into your brain, so you want to keep them running like a Ferrari. So make sure you're clear to return to activity, keep positive, and share any concerns or questions you have with the people that care about you. And take care of that awesome brain of yours. Thanks.
All right, thanks for watching it. Before I introduce Brian, I would just point this out. I've talked to parents about this really over the last couple of years. And I had a parent say to me, you got to turn the volume down at the master. I had a dad say to me, wow, concussion, they're sure a lot worse now than they used to be. And I happened to know his dad had played football. And I said, back when you played football, what did they do when you had a headache? Told me to take some aspirin. Did you keep playing? Yeah. So we're not really saying it's all that much worse now than it was 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago. We just know a lot more about it, and we're ready to take care of it. So I don't want the message to be tonight that we think it's a lot worse than it ever was. We just know more, and we're going to do more about it, and we're going to take care of our kids. So Brian Meitner is our athletic trainer through Ford Healthcare. Brian is here a lot and really gets to know our kids. He is a resource for you, for your sons and daughters. Our coaches are a resource for you. Our coaches are getting more information this year about recognizing the symptoms of concussion and being told the importance of sending them to be checked. You may have that one that I agree with the most on there. There may be a frustrated son or daughter in your house when we address this. So I fully anticipate that will be the case. But I'm going to let Brian talk just a little bit about this.
Good evening. Just quickly before we talk about concussion, I just wanted to let all the parents know that I am here at the school on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoon. I usually get here about anywhere between 2:30, 2:45, and I hang around until anyone who wants to see me has seen me or getting kids ready for practice or what have you. I'm also contracted with the school to cover selected home events, and we cover more of the high-risk events like football, wrestling, and girls and boys basketball and soccer. So just to talk about another sheet that was provided for you tonight. It's a 4-page sheet, and at the top is Ford Healthcare and the Impact logo. All of you did not have to take one of these tonight. The only ones who had to take one were athletes who are going to be competing in fall football and fall soccer. So if you have an athlete that is not going to be competing in those, if you want to turn these back in so we can recycle them for the spring, or I'm sorry, the winter and the spring, that would be appreciated. We could save some trees. So for the parents and athletes of fall football and soccer, the first page is basically just an informational sheet to let you know what Impact is. Basically, Impact is a computerized program that athletes take when they're normal, so that we get a baseline of what their brain functions like under normal circumstances. And then if they should happen to suffer some kind of a head injury, then they can be retested, taking the same kind of computerized test, and we compare the results from normal to injured, and that gives us the best way of trying to figure out when they're ready to go back to any activity, and then go through the return to play protocol that the slideshow kind of showed you about. The second sheet is just a bunch of frequently asked questions about impact testing, so you can take that home and read it over at your leisure. The third sheet is a consent form. We need, because majority of athletes are minors, we need to have a consent form because this is like a medical test. It will become part of the medical record. Anything that I do as far as seeing athletes and recording things are HIPAA protected and are a part of the athlete's medical record, just like when they go to the doctor's office. So I need to have your consent for your athletes to take this test. And the last sheet is a demographics sheet that would be helpful to fill out in advance to bring to me so I can store it in my training room. This is also the first part of the impact test and will speed the test along when they actually take it. Okay? So we take the test here at the school. There is no charge for the test. You can see by the sheet, it does not harm your child in any way. It's just another way, or actually one of the best ways, if they happen to have a head injury, that we can follow them safely back to their activity. The tests, like I said, do not cost anything. They're underwritten by Ford Healthcare. A couple of years ago when we got the test, the ability to do the test, we wrote a grant to offer this program to all of the schools that we have under contract, which is 5 different high schools. If an athlete has an injury, the first post-concussion test is free, and we do it here at the school. If they happen to if they don't pass that first test, they have a second test, and there is a charge for that, and we have to do that through the medical clinic. It's a nominal fee of $25 if you try to run it through your insurance, or $20 if you're paying in cash. If you have more questions, my phone number and email are listed on the sheet, and you can contact me at any time. I'll be hanging around here a little bit if anyone has any questions specifically about impact or the athletic training program here at Jefferson. Thank you.
Okay, Brian, like you said, he's going to hang around if anyone has any questions. On the screen, our school district website. If you haven't looked at it in a while, it was new last May. The reason I have it up there, you can get to schedules by clicking on right there. And when you click on there, you're going to be going to our Rock Valley site. You have to do it again. Of course. There it is. It's been this site for a number of years now. Our whole Rock Valley Conference uses this service. We're able to share information. This is the current information. The district went back to having a paper calendar this year, and that's great. But please, don't expect spring sports to be what's on that paper calendar. It changes. Sometimes it changes a day ahead of time. Okay? It changes for a variety of reasons. Someone reschedules a band concert at Parkview and we have to move a game. Okay? So please, I'm thrilled to have the paper calendar again, but that is not the end that you want to look for. You want to look here. Anything I have goes on here as soon as I get it. And the schedules can all be accessed, the dates, everything else. You can just move around that site, and you're all very capable of doing that. So, we're at the end. As you leave here tonight, you can turn in everything. You don't have to turn in anything. We only have 2 people in the lobby tonight, so if you're going to turn things in, be a little patient, but it might be worth it, because you'll be done. If you don't want to turn things in tonight because you want to go home, read it over, organize it, please do. But if you can turn it in sooner into the high school, the trailer, before they start moving, and again, I'll pick on those 2 sports that are starting the 13th, but even the ones starting on the 7th, they might be moving that week. So it's in your best interest, all athletes, to get your stuff taken care of as soon as possible. That's part of why I had this meeting so early. I know it's early, okay? But I knew that we would be doing this moving stuff, so I'm giving you extra time, and registration is another time, August 1st, that you can turn things in as well. Okay? I'll ask for questions, but I usually get none, but I'll still ask. Anyone want to be brave? But I'll get Rust here soon. Oh, yes. Dawn and Maria, right out in the comments. For now, still at the trailer. The trailer that's out on Taft Avenue is where the high school office is right now. They are there from 7 to 3. But they're going to start moving at some point, like I've been saying, but they are there from 7 to 3. Thank you. Anything? Yeah? That's the room to the high school. Jefferson Athletic, writing a check, you can make it out to Jefferson High School. You can pay the fees for a winter and a fall sport, but you don't have to do that tonight. That can wait until you get closer to that season. Okay, that's up to you. Anything else? Did I make it less than 45? They're going to be, the cards for the attendance at the meeting are available on your way out, because now you've attended. Thank you.